So thank you so much for joining us today. The AWARE Foundation is so honored to be able to speak with you too. So to start off, would you like to introduce yourself and Niam?
Sure. My name's Nina. I'm Niam's mom, and this is Niam. Niam is an artist, and he is he's an abstract artist, and his paintings sell all around the world. And he's recognized not just as someone with autism, but someone who is an accomplished artist in his own right.
Yes, definitely. I've seen some of his work and it's really beautiful, especially with all the colors and textures. So actually on that, as our first question, as a painter, what about this medium does Niam gravitate towards, and how is it important in understanding his work and process?
Niam first started out in acrylics, and because he likes to layer, he then moved on to oils. And oils is a little bit different, where acrylics dry very fast. So he always had to work really, really fast while he was layering and mixing. And with oils, he has a little bit more freedom because it takes a while to dry. So he's able to layer and blend the paint on his canvas and be able to take time, and he doesn't have to rush, and he's able to leave a painting quarter way finished, halfway, and come back the next day and and see his vision and see what he's doing and keep working on it. With acrylics, he really was in the studio sometimes for 8 or 9 hours because the paints would dry very fast. So oils has given him more freedom for his expression and allow him to step back and see what he's doing and reassess and build on it.
I see, yeah, totally. I can totally understand how taking a step back is really important for that process. And so do you remember any specific moments that led to Niam wanting to make art, or what was it like when he created his first painting?
Well, his first painting, wasn't something he asked to do. We were just, we were experimenting with different things and showing him different things that he can do. So we were exposing him, and we exposed him to art, and not thinking that anything would come out of it. He created this really beautiful abstract art. And to be honest, I was just, very proud of it. And as just like any other mother, I put it on my refrigerator. And my older son said, "Mom, this is really beautiful. It's more than just a piece of art." And he was the one who kind of said, let's put this out on social media. Let's see what happens. And we did. And that's how he got started, because we started sharing his artwork and people started calling in and they wanted to buy it. And his first big offer was from someone in New York.
Wow, that is so lovely, yeah. And it's so wonderful that Niam has this supportive family who can recognize the talent in his art.
We all love him. He's our favorite.
That is very sweet.
Yeah.
So yeah, actually, I was also wondering what influences his art? Like, is there a certain story or message that he often wants to convey through his work?
Yeah, he loves nature. So most of his artwork is based on nature, whether it's the ocean or sunrises, sunsets, the sky, and his feelings. And I feel that his feelings are quite pure, and you see the purity in his artwork. He rarely does a black painting or a very dark painting, and he will only do that if he's very, very upset over something. But most of his paintings are quite bright. They are full of depth and love, and that's how he feels, and that's what you see. And you will see a lot of nature coming out in his paintings, and he loves the beauty of nature, and it's he loves its purity, whether it be flowers. And we travel a lot too, and so we try to expose him to different environments, and because of his autism, a typical student might learn from like history from a textbook or geography from a textbook. For someone like Niam, and especially with his autism and you know, because speech is limited, he learns by seeing. So we give him life experiences, and then he learns from that, whether we, you know, go to the ocean and we take him canoeing, or we take him on a boat ride, or snorkeling, or whatever we do. He's even done shark diving, if you would believe. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and so all of those experiences come out in his paintings, right? And I think that's the depth that you see. And again, they're all based around nature.
Yeah, certainly. I totally understand what you mean by the purity coming out through the colors, but obviously there's also a level of sophistication that is so wonderful about his work.
Yeah, he's able to blend right on his canvas. And, you know, sometimes, and many times he does blend on his palette, but and it's very sophisticated, because sometimes he's using colors and he's blending, and I'm like, orange and green, like I'm like, are you sure you want orange and green? And he's like, yeah. And by the time he's done and he's added all the other colors that he wants to add in, the painting is gorgeous, but he sees his vision, and because of his lack of speech, he's not able to tell you what that vision is. So you just kind of have to wait, right? And see where it's going. And then when it's done, it's you know, some of them are quite stunning, and he doesn't put medium into his oil paints, so he doesn't thin them out. He really does an impasto style. So he takes the oil paints as they are, and then you'll see the depth in them as he layers and layers and layers. It's like the painting is coming out at you, and you can look you know, at the center of the painting and see something different in the corners of the painting, and then when you step back and see the whole painting, it's, you know, you can't stop looking at his paintings.
Definitely, yeah. They're very generous in the imagery that they provide. And I also noticed, because there is quite a lot of texture in his paintings, I was wondering, does he often use tools like brushes or palette knives, or what does he prefer?
He uses, you wouldn't believe, not normal tools from the art store. We often go to Home Depot, and he wanders around and he picks up different things, different tools, and that's what he uses. And every painting can be different. It's never the same. So he'll sometimes use a different combination, or you know, I've even seen him pick up sticks. You know, like if we're walking, he'll pick up things. Before, I thought, what's he doing? And then when we would go to the studio, he would put all this stuff in his bag and take it with him. So now I don't say anything when we have, like, you know, bags of stuff. and he uses those to create his textures. So it's not always a brush or a palette now. He uses different things. Yes, that's Michelle.
Hello. We're talking about your lovely work.
Talking about your paintings.
Yes.
Are you going to make a new painting? Yeah. No, you can't rewind. This is recording.
Rewind.
No, we can't rewind.
Rewind.
We can watch it after.
Yes,
No,
definitely.
Okay.
Yeah, it's so wonderful that he is so innovative in the tools that he used. Do you have any specific tools that are his favorites, or like any interesting ones that you might not expect to get such a cool texture out of?
He, like I said, he uses a lot of the tools from Home Depot.
Right.
So he'll use construction tools, different things. Like, it's never the same.
Wonderful. Yeah. Yeah, so actually my next and final question for Niam specifically was, how has art impacted Niam's life with its freedom for self-expression? Does he find it to be a therapeutic process?
I'm not sure if he finds it therapeutic. I'm sure all artists will say it's calming to be in an art room and to paint, right? When you're doing something, that a hobby or something, whether you like to work out or whatever your hobby is, it's always therapeutic. But, you know, I think it's more than that. You know, for an artist, it's their medium of expression. So in case, it's not just his medium of expression, but it's what he sees and how he sees the world. So we may see the ocean as blue with waves and ripples, but he's seeing more than that. You know, he's seeing you know, the tree sparkle. He's seeing the fish in there. He's seeing so many different things. And that's what you see in his paintings. It truly is an abstract of all the different colors that he sees and that he envisions. And then he layers it. So one of his paintings is of the world. And when you see that painting, it's the first layers had blue and you know, where he created the ocean, and the second one had different taupes and browns, and he kept building and building. And when you look at it, and it's the world, but it's the way he created it. It's not the way you would, you know, you may envision it, or what me and you might have seen. Is what he's seen. And also his art speaks to you, so it's his way of having a conversation with you. So each layer is saying something, and then the whole painting is a conversation. So it allows the viewer to have a conversation with Niam and what he sees.
Certainly, yeah. Yeah, I think that that's what's so lovely about art, is the fact that he is able to share his vision and communicate with both through this visual form. And I think it's actually so important that we have artists like Niam who are young and who are a part of the neurodiverse community, and showing with, like, for example, several exhibitions and solo shows. He's a well-established artist, and it's really amazing. I know that I said the previous one was the last question, but I actually did have one more question. So yeah, with like all of these exhibitions, selling paintings for thousands of dollars, and garnering lots of critical acclaim, it's amazing how he's already made such a splash in the art world at such a young age. So as someone who is breaking the preconceived boundaries of what is possible, is there anything that you think you would like to say to other neurodiverse youth or adults who are inspired by his story?
Well, I think it's just not for neurodiverse adults. I think it's for all kids and teenagers and young adults, is that you can do anything. There is nothing that you cannot do. Don't think that if you're different, whether you're neurodiverse, you have a learning disability, you have a speech impediment, or you just don't feel good about yourself, kids who are bullied, you know, if you find something that you love and you're passionate about, put your whole heart into it. When you put your whole heart into it, you will be successful. And success doesn't mean how much money you make. It doesn't mean how much recognition you get, but it's really about how you feel. I know for Niam, he feels good about himself. He's independent. He feels good, really good when someone buys a painting. And I'll tell you, he doesn't know the difference between $5, $500, and $5,000. He just knows that someone is buying his painting and loves it as much as he loves it. And that makes them feel good. It makes them feel accomplished, and it gives self-worth to somebody. And my message as a mother to every child and teenager and young adult out there is that you can really do anything that you want. Never feel that, you know, I have a setback. Put your whole heart into it. If you need help, accommodation, take it. I mean, people who run businesses don't run them by themselves. Big businesses always have a team of people, and there's nothing wrong with having a team of people to, you know, to assist you and to help you to get where you want, but feel good about yourself. And that's the most important thing. And you have to love yourself just the way you are. And that would be my message to every person out there.
Yeah, that is so lovely. It's really wonderful to hear how he's found this passion of his at such a young age, because for everyone, like you've mentioned, it can be something that is difficult. So it's so wonderful to see how he has been able to do that, and see how he does have this team, this wonderful family who is so supportive of his passion as well. So thank you so much for answering those questions about Niam. And thank you, Niam, for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you. So if it's okay, I just have a couple questions for you specifically, Nina, as I know that your wonderful advocacy for the neurodivergent community has definitely extended far more than your own household, as you are the president of Able2Learn. So the following questions will mainly just be for you. So if Niam would like to stay, then that's totally great. And if he would prefer not to, then that's totally fine as well.
Okay, you want to stay or go?
Great.
Who's going to stay?
Okay, lovely. Yeah, so as the president of Able2Learn, a learning resource for ABA materials for families and professionals all across the globe, you are a leader in providing thousands of families with special needs accessible education. And with a curriculum stretching from math, science, to life skills and visual cooking recipes, most of which are free, it's amazing just how many resources you and your team have produced. So could you tell us more about your experience with creating and growing Able2Learn, as well as how important it is that there are education resources like this cater to support individuals with autism and other special needs?
Well, when I first started on my journey, when I had Niam, one of the biggest roadblocks I found was, one was the lack of materials that were available. And second, the materials that were available were quite expensive. And then when you, like for example, you know, the first 100 cards to teach speech, you know, if you went to buy them, they were $300. And if you think about all the different skills that our kids need to learn, and as we all know, every child is different and every child has different skills to learn. But in most cases, we could generalize and say that most of our kids need to learn many different skills, whether it be from speech to auditory processing, functional skills, life skills. I mean, there's just a whole gamut of skills that our kids need to learn. And if you couple that, the expense of the actual materials, and couple that with the expense of therapy that our kids need, I mean, we're talking in the hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars for families. And most families, you know, they can't afford it. I mean, in my journey, I met families who were second mortgaging their homes. Grandparents or their parents, you know, were dipping into their RSPs and their savings to help their grandchildren. And, you know, it's really unfortunate, the cost. And some kids were, you know, who were lucky enough where parents could afford, were getting treatment. Other kids, you know, where they got some government funding and then the funding runs out. I mean, our kids need, as you know, they really need therapy from the time that they're young to when they are young adults, because if you think about all the skills that a regular, you know, child learns till they're adults, they're quite tremendous. I mean, you know, like even my older son who's neurotypical, he's still learning how to cook, you know, so, and he's going to be he's going to be 20. And so he's still learning. So if he's still learning, then our kids who have, you know, who have autism or have neurodiverse, they are still learning too. And probably they just need more help learning those skills. So I started this website and started to create an education platform to start covering some of the key things that parents would need, some of the key resources. So if you didn't have funding, or if you didn't have money, or even if you do have money, it's still hard to navigate. You know, what materials do I need? How do I start? It's an unregulated field, right? So that, you know, we don't have regulations. So some therapists are great and some are not. So there's not, right? And so it's a very confusing platform for parents. And then there's all these different type of therapies. Do I do ABA? Do I do play therapy? Do I do speech? Do I do a combination? I mean, it's very overwhelming for parents. So instead of getting into all of that, I thought that I would start creating the materials, and then parents could choose according to their child what therapy is best for their child. And so I started creating like the 100 flashcards. I mean, that's a saving of $300. ABA data sheets, functional skills, like all kinds of things that parents might be creating to save money. And, you know, depression and, you know, mental health amongst parents is very real. Like, it is a very real issue that we need to talk about. And oftentimes it's because, you know, money can become an issue. Parents are tired and overworked. And, you know, they have their jobs and they still have a family to look after. And, you know, it can be stressful on siblings as well. So if, you know, I never looked at to see, you know, some people would say to me, well, if a family has a certain threshold of income, you know, they should pay for it. And, you know, I was never in favor of that, because, you know, if parents can save money or save time or save resources, they can use it for that, you know, family vacation. And why not? Because, you know, family vacation is when we all get together. You know, we become a unit, we de-stress, you know, we forget things. So, you know, it doesn't matter what your household income is, because mental health doesn't ask you what your income is, right? And if you have a child with a neurodiverse, who's neurodiverse, or, you know, who has autism or Down syndrome or whatever, you know, whatever they have, it's not based on income either. You know, it's you anybody can have anything. So, you know, my issue was, what can I do to help the community? And, you know, I'm a strong believer in education. And I think the more education that kids have, the more accessible it is for parents, and the more efficient it is, the more money they can save. It helps, you know. And I don't just have parents on my website. I was surprised at the amount of professionals that I have on the website, the amount of speech therapists I have, occupational therapists, ABA therapists, and most importantly, the amount of teachers I have using my materials. So a one download can be, you know, 10 or 15 kids that are accessing that. And once a download happens, that teacher is using it every year. And so what happens is, you know, a teacher too only has so much time in a day, and how many resources can she make? So, and funding also, like how much funding do they have? And you know, and when I see that teachers are using it, that makes me feel good, because that means not only it increases the quality of education for the kids too, and their learning skills. And you know, one of my greatest downloads actually is puberty. You know, and it's surprising, because some of my puberty resources are quite they're quite visual, right? So it's not just how to put on deodorant and stuff. Some of them are actually on masturbation, and my masturbation has over 60,000 downloads. It has an incredible amount, and it just shows you that although there are books on how to teach masturbation, so talking to the parents or the teachers on what to do, there's not a lot of materials for actually for the student themselves on what exactly is masturbation, and how do you do masturbation, and what does it mean, and where do you do it, where do you not do it, what's privacy, what's not privacy, what's good touching, what's bad touching. So when you get into all of this, you can really break it down into so many different avenues that are so important. So when I look at that whole puberty section, the downloads are huge. And the other big download that I have is bullying and mental health. I have a lot of downloads on that issue as well, because bullying is a real issue for our kids, and our kids need to know how they feel, understand it, and what strategies can I use when those things happen to me. And use the recipes also. You know, a lot of people I've had a lot of feedback from therapists that are creating small cooking schools, and they're actually using the recipes, they're downloading them and creating little books. So not only are they teaching, you know, the student on how to cook, but then they get to take it home. And, you know, and the parents have it set already, right? They don't have to make it, and they can, you know, it can become something for independence, which is really important for our children. You know, as parents, we're not living forever, and that's one of the biggest worries. So I try to think of you know, all the issues that Niam has had and all the things that I'm feeling. That's how I kind of decide what my next topic is. That's how I kind of work on it. And what was a hobby has now turned out to be the largest education resource. And you know, and it's a family. It's family. Like Niam is the inspiration. My husband helps me, and my older son has made quite a few. He's helped me with the puberty, especially the male side, and we just work as a family and as a team. And you know, that's it. Really, I think I talked too much.
No. That was so beautiful, and it's so wonderful to hear you talk about this, because I think that as someone who is the mother of a child who is neurodiverse, you have this firsthand experience, and you're truly able to empathize with so many different families who are going through very similar experiences. And I totally understand how many people can feel so lost on exactly what to do. And so seeing that you are a mother with a neurodiverse child, and you are providing these resources to parents, but also professionals and teachers all across the globe, it's truly remarkable how much you have been able to impact other families. And especially with the fact that you do not fear from subjects such as mental health and bullying or puberty, because these are all very real and important subjects to talk about. But unfortunately, outside of just like education resources for those with special needs, in general, there's a huge lack of resources on these subjects, and especially so for those with special needs. So I think that is something that is so important and wonderful. That I'm so glad that we have people like you and your family who are truly helping the community in this aspect.
Thank you.
Yeah, totally. And so actually I was just wondering, what is the most rewarding aspect of your community involvement? Do you have a memorable moment which has stood out to you since starting this organization?
I think a lot of it is the feedback, but one memorable moment is when I had a principal call me and said they had, and it was just out of the blue, they said they had a 16-year-old boy who he was functioning well, and he was ready to do a work term but couldn't because he was masturbating everywhere. So in a classroom, in a corner, just didn't understand. So we gave, I put some books together, which I thought would help, and some questions and answers. And the teacher gave it to me, and she called me in a week, and she said that not only has he stopped and understands where he wants to do it, he can now go on this work term. So that's a life changer for this boy, right? And the parents tried, the teachers tried, and I think it comes back down to there's lots of, first of all, there's not a lot of materials, but there are a lot of materials on how to teach. But there's the lack of what I find is the actual material that speaks to our kids. So how, like, the visuals are already there, simple sentences, and most of my stuff is research based. So what I mean by that is that I went through journal articles, and there's lots of journal articles on, you know, font size, that's good for our kids. How simple should the pictures be? They should be on white background. And there's a lot of research on different tests. So what I did was I read through the journal articles, and I started making notes. And then I took a whole bunch of those findings from different journal articles, and I put them together. And that's how I created my resources. And I think that's one of the reasons it's been successful, was that I just didn't make it up. You know, I know I wanted to do this, but I wanted to make sure that if I'm going to spend the time and the resources to make it, that they're going to help our kids, right? And because if they don't help, then there's no point.
Totally, yeah. Making sure that you can tell through the resources that they are well researched, and there has been a lot of thought being put into them. And so as we close this interview, my final question to you would be, how would you encourage others to partake in helping, in the helping or advocacy of neurodiverse or autistic individuals?
I would say be proud of your child. As our kids enter into adulthood, people are less tolerant. So when your child is autistic or neurodiverse and young, people tend to be more tolerant because they're a child. As they grow into adulthood, they're less tolerant. And that's just a fact. And that's because they're adults. And we have different expectations of adults. And sometimes I feel that people have more expectations and less tolerance of adults. And so my advice to everybody would be not to be afraid. Keep taking your child out. Do not, don't make your child suffer because of other people looking or making comments. Don't keep your child inside. Keep taking them out. We have to take our kids out, and we have to create awareness for our adults. There's a lot of awareness for kids, but not for adults. And keep advocating for them. Post what they do on, if you're comfortable with social media, or talk with your friends, bring them out, with your friends, and keep bringing them out in public and creating that advocacy and awareness. And you don't do much. Just be proud of who your child is, and, and do the best that you can.
That's so lovely. Thank you so much for answering all of these questions. I know that I personally have learned so much just from hearing you speak today, and I really, really appreciate you sharing this knowledge with us so we can share it with even more people to really understand how wonderful and important Niam's work is, as well as your work and advocacy.
Thank you, Michelle, for taking the time to interview me and Niam. We really appreciate it.
Of course, yeah. Okay. Thank you so much.
Thanks,
I hope you guys have a wonderful day.
Okay, thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.